Mauga needs nerfs, and it's a little bit upsetting that Blizzard didn't foresee just what these patch notes that I have on your screen right now would entail for the game. I'm going to talk about this first and what has caused Mauga to become rather oppressive. So, first of all, Mauga became available in competitive play, and they were concerned about his issues and how he was like a little bit not tanky. But this is where, like, when Blizzard sees a problem, rather than doing it step by step, they just go like the full way. So, not only did they make him tankier from the sense that they gave him more armor than HP, they also decided to buff his berserker over health conversion rate. I would argue that this was unnecessary. The incendiary and volatile chain guns number of shots taken to ignite enemies has been reverted from 15 to 10, and then the spread has been decreased if you're using only one chain gun. Now, the problem with this entire situation over here is essentially, I'm going to keep it real with you guys, and this is not the best way to talk about it, but unfortunately, Mauga as a tank overall is just very flawed in design. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot going within his kit. He's the most simplified tank that this game has ever seen. I'm going to keep it very real with you guys. He is literally Bastion as a tank, and his whole thing, his whole play style, that is the best way to play him, the way you find value with him, is that he literally exists to shred another tank. Let me take you to the hero gallery real quick, and let's talk about the heroes over here. D.Va and Roadhog are probably the only two characters that might have a somewhat decent matchup, but if you're smart with Mauga, you can bully the two of them really well. Now, I made a how to counter Mauga guide, and I said the Roadhog was the best one, and Roadhog was amazing at countering Mauga until we ended up in a situation where they gave Mauga the buffs to his lifesteal and made him tankier. Then the whole matchup changed. So until they nerf Mauga again, Roadhog is struggling against Mauga. Now, if the Mauga doesn't necessarily have a backline of Kiriko plus Ana or Kiriko plus Bap, you can actually melt Mauga pretty damn easily as a Roadhog. It's not that difficult because he really needs the high burst heal. So if he has something like Mercy Moira or some weird combination behind him, you're gonna be fine against him. But when we talk about Mauga, we have to understand that pretty much he's bullying his DPS and supports into playing a certain playstyle with both of them have to hold his hand like crazy. And that goes to show that as a tank, he is flawed. He has completely failed as a tank. No tank requires this much resources to work properly, unlike Mauga. And that is why, like, when you isolate him as a character, his only viability is he exists to just melt the other tanks. Against Zarya, he has a good matchup. Against Ball, he has an insanely favorable matchup. Winston's a joke. Sigma is like, once you've baited out the cooldown, Sigma just gets bullied into a corner because he cannot do anything about the high burst damage. Sure, he can stall it out with his shield by rocking away the Mauga. He can, use the suck to convert it into HP, but like one way or the other, like Sigma's not going to be able to keep up with that pace and he gets melted. Now, again, there are some scenarios where Sigma can have a bit of a good matchup, but that's map dependent. If the map isn't favoring Sigma and the angles that he can be taking, he's in a lot of trouble. Roadhog at the moment has a okay matchup against Mauga, but it doesn't favor Roadhog anymore. Reinhardt is the joke of the tank. We have a video coming on Reinhardt very soon. Reinhardt is the joke of the tank role. They unironically need to buff Ryan now. Like, I don't want to hear excuses from Alec Dawson. A character like Reinhardt has been just demolished. Like, it's so sad. We'll talk about Reinhardt a little bit later. Ramatra is also a joke to Mauga. Orisa is a free kill to Mauga. Junker Queen, because of her slimmer hitbox, Mauga can struggle up against her, but it's just a matter of time. Like, the Queen is like, okay, I have this small window where I can kind of take this fight, but unfortunately, when it comes to the damage, Mauga just shreds life bars, and Junker Queen falls apart against it immediately. Doomfist can draw out the fight because of how tanky he can be, the empowered punch, booping him away or anything like that. But overall, like, again, like, he's not actually ever going to win a proper 1v1 against Mauga, because again, Mauga's whole playstyle of just doing so much high sustained damage is it's too much to handle for the tanks. Especially if they don't have a way to like heal themselves. So Doomfist falls apart immediately. D.Va as well, once that initial phase of defense matrix like gets used up, Mauga's just shredding your HP bar on D.Va, and that's where the stress of all these other tanks becomes relying on the support role more than they should. And that's kind of the problem with Mauga as well, is just how like, I really don't understand that they saw the worst aspects of Roadhog and the worst aspects of Bastion and what people didn't like about them and said, you know what, let's take Roadhog and Bastion, give them the fusion dance from Dragon Ball Z and create Mauga, and that's literally what he is. Not only that, I think Mauga, out of all the tanks in the game, let me have a quick look. One, two, yeah. Out of all the tanks in the game, Mauga has probably the most underwhelming ult to use in the game. It feels like old Orisa Bongo, where yeah, you used it, but so what? It doesn't really give you like an insane high that you can get from landing a big shatter, or a great meteor strike, or being smart with your Orisa ult, a big diva bomb. Like, I feel like I will dedicate a video to hero design problems and philosophy problems with the newer heroes in Overwatch, especially in the tank side of things. But Mauga, he really is such a sad situation. Like, I don't understand how Overwatch came out with Junker Queen, a mechanically demanding hero who's pretty fair nowadays and is relatively fun to play and nothing too over the top anymore. Ramatra as well in that same light. He's definitely strong. Once Mauga goes away, we will have to look at Ramatra, but Ramatra is pretty fair. Like, he's just a big bruiser. He has some good tanking abilities and a fun dynamic playstyle with good mechanical skill required for him. But these two are a lot more fair than what Mauga is. Mauga just is like, yeah, I'm gonna run in, I'm gonna isolate another tank, and I'm just gonna melt them. And that's what I don't really like about him. And unfortunately, the way I see it is that we will never find a good balance for Mauga, because it's like we have to pick our poison. Like, should he be tanky? But then the drop off is that he's not good at kill. So basically, he becomes like Orisa, right? Orisa's whole stick is that she's tanky, but her kill potential is kind of meh. So when you play her, you're playing her to stay alive and to draw out fights so that your DPS and supports can take advantage of it. And maybe here and there you can get some picks. So Mauga could end up becoming like that. Or we make Mauga a lethal hero pick into other tanks, but then the trade-off is that he can't be as tanky. At the moment, he has the best of both worlds. At the moment, again, he's pretty tanky and he's pretty lethal to other tanks. And obviously, this doesn't make playing other tanks very fun. It makes them feel very miserable, especially if you're playing fan favorites like Ryan and Winston. It's just not fun to play against. And the way I see it, like I said before, Mauga is just a character that you cannot balance, and unfortunately, we have to take the L for him, in my personal opinion. I would say you maintain the aspects of him being a tank and make him tanky, but reduce his lethality. His ability to just bully and destroy tanks at what he can do is sad. This does not necessarily apply to his matchups against the DPS and support roster, because of the fact that his weapon spread and everything struggles to maintain consistent damage against the squishier heroes. So against them he's okay, unless he has them in a good, like, isolated, like, like a bit of a room with like a lot of corners and everything. But if it's a wide open map, Mauga's gonna struggle just a little bit, not too much. But his matchups against damage and support aren't that bad. The problem I have is just we put in yet another tool of making the tank role miserable. Like, there still is an argument to be made that he's kind of pay to win, and I proved it on one of my live streams where we picked Mauga and we were just demolishing with him. And we were talking about this over there too, that, well, how would we balance him? So overall picture, I spoke about, we either keep his lethality but reduce his tankiness, or we keep his tankiness and we reduce his lethality just a little bit. It's either that, or they have to give Mauga a completely new passive where, like, when he's dueling a tank, he has to have like some different debuffs applied to him in order to maintain some healthiness within the tank role. Unfortunately, like I said, he's just flawed in design, because he's just a big Bastion. Like, his whole thing is, I'm a big Bastion who has like a budget, like, or like a budget grav as an ultimate, and my whole thing is to just look at people and melt them. Like, and unfortunately, he's really good at doing that against the other tank role, and we are trying to solve the tank problems, not trying to add on another one. So those are my two suggestions, and the only other suggestion I have for nerfing Mauga is, I would say that I think Mauga is a character that needs like an emergency rework. Like, I know they're not going to do it, because they're not going to take an L that they designed one of their newer heroes to be bad, because if I remember correctly, none of the new heroes, quote unquote, have been like properly reworked into having new abilities. Like, the Sojourn didn't get reworked, Kiriko didn't get reworked, Life Everything. Like, they got shifts in power within their kit, or some things were changed up, but they didn't get massive reworks like how Doomfist and Orisa got new abilities and completely new design philosophies within their gameplay style. So the way I see it is, unfortunately, when it comes to Mauga, he's by far the worst designed hero that Overwatch has ever seen. and we have to bring him down into control. And like I said, this is up to Blizzard. What would they pick? Make him less lethal and make him more tanky, or make him less tanky and make him more lethal? The way I see it, let him be a more consistent Orisa. Let him be tanky. Let him be a hit scan version of Orisa who is pretty good at applying a decent amount of pressure, but not enough to the point where right now he can just completely turn around fights. So when you do play against him, you try to maintain a play style of, okay, let's try to outpace or ignore the Mauga and go around him. And, the Mauga has to do his level best to make up for that by, being smart with his E, like activating his cardiac overdrive around his teammates so that they can get the lifesteal as well. Or another final way to nerf, to kind of deal with the Mauga problem as well is, and I understand why it is the way it is, but um I don't agree with Mauga's lifesteal being applied to everybody. I think that should be something that only Mauga can use, and you can increase that thing's power a little bit and then drop like the amount of armor and the amount of, just drop the amount of armor that he has and let him have a stronger overdrive just for himself, right? Make him that selfish tank. No, not everybody likes to have a selfish tank looking at you, Roadhog, but unfortunately, the way I see it, Mauga, just from a hero design and philosophy perspective, is a failure of a hero, and he has to be one of those characters that just cannot be viable. He ruins an entire role. Guys, like really, out of all the tank heroes, nobody has a good matchup against him except maybe Roadhog, and that's just because Hog is also overtuned, right? And once Mauga kind of goes away, we should expect changes to Roadhog in due time or something like that. So let's see what happens. I would love to hear your suggestions down below. But again, one more thing. I know there's going to be people that say things like, well, I was playing this tank and I was playing this character. Yes, I understand that playing and I don't mean this with any disrespect, but you have to understand that when I am playing these characters or something, and the way that we are looking at it from an overall perspective is from the higher elo games, at least Masters Plus or Mid Masters Plus. We have to view from this perspective because over there everybody is playing to a certain degree the way the game that should be played. So when you put everything under that lens, and you're playing almost every hero to like their near maximum capacity, at the moment Mauga is incredibly oppressive, and there's more than enough like screenshots going around of people just picking Mauga and just skyrocketing in SR, skyrocketing in their ability to perform and getting new peak highs and everything. And you know what? More power to those people, but Mauga is way too easy to play, and he brings in way too much reward for the very little effort that you have to put in. Anyways, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. I would love to hear how you would nerf Mauga down below, so let me know that. And if you want to support the channel for free, you can do so by hitting subscribe and like. And if you want to help the channel financially, you can donate via a super chat, and I would appreciate it. With that being said, I will see you in tomorrow's video.